This is the lecture for European history for Monday, 9th May 2022. First off, I will congratulate you on having nice things said about you by Mr. Johnson. So always do that when you are having a sub. Where we left things was Germany was about to embark on a truly hopeless war against the Czechs over the Sudetenland. The Germans were threatening war. They had already annexed Austria and the Anschluss, so they had a very good position relative to the Czechoslovak Republic. But the Sudetenland is a mountainous frontier. The Czechs had a very effective military, very good weapons, very well motivated and well trained soldiers, and they had fortified those mountains mightily. You can turn the fan down to 1 and close the window mostly. Thank you. So that would have worked against the Germans. In addition to that, the Czechs had an ironclad defense treaty with the French. If the Czechs get attacked, France is obligated to go to war, legally and morally. If France goes to war, it's very likely Britain will go to war. The Soviets have also promised to help the Czechs against their ideological opponents, the National Socialists. And Poland and Hungary were on the edge. They saw predatory possibilities by taking some Czech land. On the other hand, if the rest of the world unifies against the Germans, Poles and the Hungarians might do so also. So the prospects for Hitler in a possible attack on the Czech Republic in 1938, it was really mixed. And then comes a man of vision and idealism, a true man of peace, Neville Chamberlain. I'm going to give you an example of how one man can definitely change the world. And it's his good intentions that do it. Because Neville Chamberlain did not serve in World War I. He was too young. He was horrified by war and the trenches, and basically all of those things I told you about the Western European countries wanting never again to have the trenches happen is summed up in Chamberlain. Chamberlain is also a machine politician in the sense that what he is good at is winning party votes against political opponents. That's his experience. Economics and party politics. He has very limited foreign policy experience. And his primary advisor, Horace Wilson, has no experience overseas. His entire experience is labor relations. So he just viewed the Nazis and the Czechs as owners and as unionized workers. In any event, Chamberlain goes to Germany himself, alone, without a delegation. First time he ever flies. He meets Hitler at Bad Godesberg in Western Germany, and basically his take is, what can we do to avoid war? This is the apotheosis of appeasement. What can we do to avoid war? And in Hitler, he encounters somebody like he'd never encountered before. A man of passion and fury who does not seem to be even interested in being reasonable. German press is filled with anti-Czech propaganda, stories of Czech soldiers kicking German pregnant women in the belly, causing miscarriages, Czech teachers insulting German students, basically a bunch of things designed to get the German people worked up into a frothy rage. Finally, Chamberlain uses his good friend Benito Mussolini to convince Hitler to convene an international conference to determine a way to bring peace. And the Germans are going to be there, led by Hitler. And the Italians are going to be there, led by Mussolini. And the French are going to be there, led by Daladier. And the British are going to be there, led by Chamberlain. And they will determine the fate of the Czechs. Is there something that you notice about this invitation list? Yes. Yes! It's their country. Okay. So, Hitler and the others meet in Munich, capital of Bavaria in southern Germany. And, well, I'll let Chamberlain tell it. The day after the Munich conference, Chamberlain arrives at an airport in Croydon, south of London. He gets off the plane. There's a bank of microphones. There are people behind him, including the smiling foreign minister, Lord Halifax, who looked like a human scarecrow. And Chamberlain holds up a piece of paper and says that in addition to the Munich agreement, which he refers to, which is an agreement to settle the Czech problem, this morning, Herr Hitler and I put our signatures on this sheet of paper, signifying solemn intention of the peoples of Britain and Germany never again to go to war. Hitler's signature's on it. Never again to go to war. Oh, and the Munich Agreement brings peace. Chamberlain is acclaimed as the hero of our time. The king, who normally is not supposed to get involved in politics, King George VI, visits Chamberlain and goes on a balcony with him to acclaim the peacemaker. Peace for Britain. Peace for France, although the French president at least had the common decency to feel soiled and ashamed. The Russians never looked at the Western Allies the same way again. The Russians would no longer take the Western Allies seriously because they're cowards. Unprincipled, shiftless cowards is the paraphrase of Joe Stalin. He used more earthy language. Because the agreement gives the Germans the Sudetenland and tells by the way, the Sudetenland as defined by Germans, not by Czechs, not by international boundaries. So if the Germans wanted a steel factory, for example, that was not in an area of majority Germans, they're still going to claim it. The Germans get to define what the Sudetenland is. And the Czechs have less than 24 hours to agree. And if they don't agree, they get to fight all by themselves. Britain and France will not go to war. So, Neville Chamberlain's good intentions in September of 1938 preserves the peace by allowing a country that he had a moral and legal right to, or obligation to defend, to be carved up. But after the Czechs and the Czechoslovak nation is maimed as the Sudetenland amputated from it, Hitler does promise that that is his last territorial demand in Europe. He says that again and again. Chamberlain says, "Are you sure?" Hitler says, "Yep, I'm telling you, my last territorial demand." So Chamberlain agrees. It is always easy to avoid getting in trouble with bullies if you are willing to sell out other people. Chamberlain didn't buy peace with British territory or British money. Chamberlain bought peace with Czech territory and Czech population. So, Winston Churchill, who's in opposition and is routinely smacked around by Chamberlain's political leadership as a warmonger, says that never in the history of Britain has His Majesty's government engaged in something so disgraceful. Because clearly it is. The French understand it. They're ashamed of it, but they avoid war, and the popular sentiment is anyone who avoids war in whatever way must be wonderful. However, Hitler is a liar! And the next March, the Ides of March, March 15th, Hitler carves away the Slovaks from the Czechs.
Hitler a Chad?
Czechia is made part of the Greater German Reich, and Slovakia becomes a German puppet state. Oh, and the Poles and the Hungarians are paid off with slivers of Slovak territory. So, in March, it becomes apparent that Chamberlain was taken for a ride, that Chamberlain was lied to, that Chamberlain sold out the Czechs, and instead of having a small to medium-sized European war in 1938, what Chamberlain was going to get was a medium to large size, possibly a world war, at some point in the future, because Hitler finally shows even Chamberlain, the idealist, that, yeah, he's not to be trusted. Okay, well, there's that. Let's see what else. Well, Hitler's on to his next thing. And his next thing is Posen, West Prussia, Danzig, the Polish corridor. Danzig is a free city under League of Nations auspices. East Prussia is separated from the rest of Germany by the Polish corridor, which was set up by the Treaty of Versailles to give access to the sea, because being a landlocked country is a way to economic more abundantly. So, Hitler demands the return of Danzig and the Polish corridor to the Reich. The Poles say no. Now, Poland is in an unenviable position. When I was a freshman in college, we played a gigantic game of Axis and Allies. Which is a massive strategy game of World War II. And there was a guy, and I didn't run the game. I was just a freshman. I was just getting used to things. But there was a guy that insisted on playing, demanded on playing, and the leaders of the game didn't want him to play, so they said, fine, you can play Poland. I do not want to play Poland in a game of Axis and Allies. Again, that's like being a midget wrestler between two gigantic world champion wrestlers. It is not, you're going to get ripped in half. So, the Poles say no. And at this point, Chamberlain, who is finally slowly rearming Britain, says, I am guaranteeing Polish territorial integrity. If anything happens to Poland, Britain's at war. And the French go, yeah, we're doing whatever Britain does because we don't want to be left alone on this continent with the Germans. So, the British and the French guaranteed Polish borders. Tensions building. Now, the British send a delegation to Stalin saying, we were sorry, we're going to mend our ways, we were wrong about Hitler. But they send an admiral named Drax to pass this, and it's a low-level delegation, and Stalin doesn't even meet with them. It's just stupid. These cowardly Westerners, though they finally know what we've been saying about Hitler all along. Stalin's going to do his own thing. Well, Stalin's own thing is announced in the last days of August 1939, when Foreign Minister Ribbentrop of Germany goes to Moscow and signs a pact with Foreign Minister Molotov of the Soviet Union. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, son of a Seabiscuit. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, or the Hitler-Stalin Pact, or the Nazi-Soviet Pact, is a peace treaty between Germany and the Soviet Union. And ideologues around the world go, but Nazis and communists are supposed to be opposites, and it doesn't matter. Because it's all about power politics. And the fact is that Hitler learned a lot of his game from Stalin in terms of how to use the secret police and how to have concentration camps and things like that. These are two totalitarian police states. They're very much alike, which means they're competitors, which means they really don't trust one another. But this is a risk-type temporary alliance. Like, North America is going to be allied with Australia, and they're going to both work to try to capture East Asia, and you're just waiting for the backstab to occur. But it's enough, because there are secret clauses in this treaty. And the secret clauses divide everything from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea between the Soviets and the Germans. For example, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia are in the Soviet zone. So is Finland. Eastern Poland is in the Soviet zone. Divisions are going to be made on the Romanian border. So basically, Hitler and Stalin secretly agreed to divide up Eastern Europe between them. Actually, Lithuania is going to be German, added to East Prussia, and Stalin's going to get the Warsaw area of central Poland. But when the actual occupation occurs, Stalin wants the Liths and doesn't want Warsaw, so Hitler gets Warsaw, and he permits the change. So the Lithuanians go to Stalin in the end. Now, on September 1st, 1939, the most amazing thing happens. Men in Polish uniforms attack a German radio station right on the border. And they all get killed. All of them. That's Poland attacking Germany. So Germany must defend itself. And it just so happens that the entire German Wehrmacht, except for a skeleton force on the western frontier, is ready to invade Poland from all sides except the east. Blah! And on September 1st, they do so. And the Poles are told that the Allies will be there by the 19th, 20th, or 21st to help. And instead, a new army does enter Poland around September 19th, 20th, or 21st. It's the Soviet Red Army, which takes eastern Poland. So Poland is partitioned yet again. This is the fourth partition of Poland, this time involving Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. Oh, and World War II begins. Not on September 1st, when the Germans attack. Not on September 2nd, but on September 3rd. When Chamberlain is finally told by his own people, if you don't get Churchill into the cabinet, and if you don't declare war like you said you were, you're going to finally be kicked out of the Prime Minister's office. So, Chamberlain is going to make an announcement. And I swear by the Lord God Almighty, if somebody copyright strikes this, this is as public domain as you get. What I'm going to do is play Chamberlain's address to the British people 2 days after the war starts. Lights. Oh, shut the fan off, close the window, close the shades, and please shut the slats over there. Why am I not getting sound? Ah, that's why. Okay. Actually, I might as well stop the tape here, and then I'm going to start, well, we'll see if I continue. So, Chamberlain's address was immediately followed by an air raid warning, which is not great public relations. People were scrambling to figure out what to do because air raid warning right after. It was like the science fiction writers were correct and the German air fleet was right on its way. As it turned out, it was a false alarm. Chamberlain is a heartbroken man, but he's still not giving up power. He delayed for 2 days declaring war on Germany, and he is going to, for the first year of the war, or actually the first, let's see, September to May, I guess that's about 9 months, prosecute the war without vigor, insisting on the leaflet bombing of Germany rather than the bombing of Germany's dams and cities. I will also point out that in his declaration of war, he talks more about himself and how he feels. Not inspirational. That's going to change when Churchill takes over. Now I'm going to begin a documentary which we will conclude tomorrow, which will deal with the new Germany and the lead up to war. Yes?
Is that Neville Chamberlain?
That is Neville Chamberlain.
Okay.
Yeah. Settle in to watch The World at War, 1974 British documentary series. This is the first episode of, without exception, the very best documentary history of World War II I have ever seen, and I've seen a bunch of them. So you'll get to at least see episode 1. Thank you. Come again.